Hey WizKid, did you hear the news?
No, I didn't, MrMostDaysOff. What's up?
Well, right now, for the entire month of February, you get 20% off on all orders at popthreads.com just by using our discount code Simpsons at checkout.
That's horrible.
No, man, that's great news. What do you mean?
They're only going to give you 80% of a t-shirt? The humanity.
No, WizKid, you get all of the t-shirt. You're just going to save 20% on the order. You still get the whole enchilada.
Whole enchilada.
No, there's no enchilada. I'm talking about t-shirts. You get to save money on your t-shirts at popthreads.com. You're going to get the whole t-shirt enchilada.
Whole t-shirt enchilada.
Just go to popthreads.com and use our discount code Simpsons at checkout so you can save 20% on all orders for the entire month of February.
Popthreads.com. Note, popthreads.com does not sell enchiladas.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as MrMostDaysOff, and today we can still feel the love lingering in the air from Valentine's Day. We are going to be loving thy neighbor with our review of Homer Loves Flanders. And of course, joining me as always, your co-host with the most, Richie the WizKid. How you doing today, Rich?
You know, I could be mistaken, but I think I've seen a lot of videos on the internet that are loving thy neighbors too.
Wait, what?
I was making a porn joke.
Oh, girl next door category.
Yeah.
Got it. I just jumped straight to the MILFs myself.
Yeah, I was going to go with the MILFs and not the girl next door either, but a lot of times they are the woman next door.
Fair enough. That was a long road you took to get there, but I'm with you, brother. I'm following along.
No,
now.
It was a very quick road. It was the next door neighbor road. It's literally the shortest road possible.
Fair enough.
You know what? Let's just kill this right now. The podcast is over. I'll throw it back to you so we can sign off. The man, the myth, the stitch face. It is Miles.
Well, I guess that's gonna do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly Review Show.
Read the title. You'll know what the episode was about.
Wow. Yes, thank you for... That's like Kent Brockman telling people to tune into the news on the other stations.
Only when the ant overlords take over.
Please do not tune into another podcast. In fact, now I feel like we're going to have to try to entice our audience to stick with us. Since you told everyone to leave, now we're going to have to give them something, Rich.
Well, what do we have to give, Miles? It's not like we're drowning in swag all of a sudden.
We are partnering with Day Street Books to give away 5 early release copies of the new book, Springfield Confidential: Jokes, Secrets, and Outright Lies from a Lifetime Writing for The Simpsons. This book is authored by Mike Reiss, as you very well know if you listen to this podcast, a beloved showrunner from seasons 3 and 4, and our good buddy Matthew Klickstein. And we have been fortunate enough that we are going to be able to give 5 copies of this book away. The book is available for pre-order right now on Amazon. Again, that's Springfield Confidential: Jokes, Secrets, and Outright Lies from a Lifetime Writing for The Simpsons. But before you can buy it, you can win a copy from us at Best Darn Diddly, and it's real easy to enter. All you've got to do is use the hashtag Worst Contest Ever. You can use that hashtag on any social media. So tag us, and you can do that on Twitter. You can do that on Instagram. You can just email us the hashtag at bestdarndiddly@gmail. You can use that on our Facebook page. Anywhere that you see us on social media, use the hashtag Worst Contest Ever, and we are going to enter you into a drawing to win one of 5 copies of the new book, Springfield Confidential. So get to work on that. We'll be announcing when we're going to be doing that giveaway very soon. It will most likely be towards the end of March when we're doing that. So start using that hashtag, get yourself entered, and we will love to send a copy of Mike Reiss and Matthew Klickstein's new book your way as soon as we get them in.
So you're saying we could have 3 books and no monies?
Well, you can win one copy of the books and keep your money.
Without any monies.
Yes, exactly. So I think this is
awesome.
really exciting news. I can't wait to get a copy of this book. It's definitely, if you're a listener of this podcast, you are in the target audience for this book. So again, worst contest ever. That's going to put you in the drawing to win a copy of Springfield Confidential, Joke Secrets and Outright Lies from a Lifetime Writing for The Simpsons. So get hashtagging.
Note, any employees of Best Darn Diddley are not allowed to take a copy of the book.
Go! Well, there goes my plan.
I know. We thought we were going to be giving away 3 copies.
I was just going to put my name in the hat for everybody who entered, but yeah, now I can't do that. Thanks, Rich. I guess we might as well get on with our review for the day. Like I said at the top of the show, we're going to be talking about the episode Homer Loves Flanders today. It originally aired on March 17th, 1994. It did have shortened credits, but it still had both a chalk and a couch gag. The chalk gag was, "I am not delightfully saucy," which, for the record, I completely disagree. Bart is absolutely delightfully saucy.
Sure.
It also
Depends
got...
on what citizen of Springfield you ask.
True. We also did get a very funny and I believe brand new couch gag where the Simpsons run into their living room to find them having 2 couches, and instead of just picking one, they all literally split themselves in half, so half of each member of the family could sit on one of both couches.
I actually really like that couch gag.
So did
I
I.
guess it's something new, and that I don't remember this one from when we were younger, so it really kind of caught me off guard, and I was like, oh, I like this.
I agree. It wasn't one that I recall seeing in the past, so it was kind of fun to have something new and exciting. And it was very Merkin-ish.
Yeah?
As a lot of jokes in this episode are, as we're going to find out. For now, we open on some recycled animation, which according to the commentary track, they absolutely love using because it saves them so much time and work. In this case, it was the opening jingle for Eye on Springfield, with host Kent Brockman. Tonight on Eye on Springfield, just miles from your doorstep, hundreds of men are giving weapons and trained to kill. The government calls it the Army, but a more alarmist name would be the Killbot Factory. But first, Springfield has come down with a fever. Football fever, brought on by the biggest game of the year, the Pigskin Classic between the Shelbyville Sharks and our own Springfield Adams. If you have the fever, there's only one cure. Take 2 tickets and see the game Sunday morning.
Warning, tickets should not be taken internally.
See, because of me, now they have a warning. Our first of many great Homer lines to come in this episode.
What I want to know is, how come every time Springfield has a team, they're always the Adams, no matter what sport it is?
Are they the Isotopes, or is that Capital City?
Maybe that was the Springfield Isotopes.
As I say,
it was the Isotopes.
Wasn't it the Capital City Isotopes, or is it the Springfield Isotopes? I'm blanking on that.
I think the listeners should go back to Homer at the Bat and listen to that podcast and then tweet at us about it.
Yeah, bail us out here, please. Please, let us know.
Best darn bailout.
Yeah, I like that, actually. Does that include a lot of money from the government? Because I definitely support that.
Again, to call back to a joke we just got done saying, it has no monies.
Has no monies. Our government? You're absolutely accurate. For now, though, Bart decides, like the government, to take advantage of the situation, and he slyly approaches his dad and says, "Hey, Dad, I'll sell you these for $50.
Woohoo! Sold!
He immediately gives Bart the money, and Bart immediately runs off, only for Marge to explain, "Those tickets aren't to the game, Homer."
What do you mean? It says right here. Free wig with every purchase of large wig, downtown wig center. Why, you little... free wig.
And we get this fantastic fantasy sequence from Homer where he's picturing himself wearing a Marge wig and talking to himself in the mirror.
I love you, homie. I don't need her at all anymore. Which I gotta say, it's kind of sweet in a really fucked up way that in Homer's fantasy, he's still kind of picturing I almost said It's kind of sweet that he's still picturing Marge. I almost did it again. Jesus.
You've got me on the mind. That Valentine's Day thing must really be lurking in the brain cells there, Rich.
It's just that you're always
Hi,
texting me and fucking talking to me, and it's just I can't escape you.
That's the most fucked up, sweetest thing you've ever said to me, Richie. I can't escape you either.
But no, it's sweet that he can kind of still picture Marge all the time in his fantasies, I think. Because like most guys would be thinking about some other woman kind of thing, but he was thinking about Marge, basically.
That's a very abstract way to get around to Homer being sweet there. I thought that was an interesting fantasy. But yeah, sweet, not necessarily the word I'd use. However, I can see what you're saying. It still all centers around
sweet
Marge.
in a fucked up way.
It is sweet in a fucked up way. All right, you nailed that. Well done, sir. Well done.
You know what? I quit. See if the derailers are hiring.
Homer is just completely focused on getting tickets to this football game. He actually decides to camp out in front of the box office, and it actually works for him. He's the second person in line, so he's almost definitely going to get tickets. I love, though, because when he wakes up, we see him kind of sleeping in line, and when he wakes up, he declares, wow, only had to miss 8 days of work to score these tickets.
With the money you would have made working, you could have bought tickets from a scalper.
In theory, yes. Jerk.
Which, honestly, with what's going on in our country right now, you could very easily miss 8 days of work with that new flu string going around.
Oh, I was wondering what you meant
Like
by that
flu.
for a second, but yeah, apparently there's like the mega flu going around.
We have people asking for getting a full week off of work because that's what they were told to do from their doctors.
Wow. Seems
I mean,
convenient.
this isn't my only job, Miles.
Seems convenient.
I know, that's what I said.
As
I was like, we were both sick recently.
If we didn't even let it stop us
shit.
from podcasting. I didn't even have a voice 2 weeks ago, and we were still on this shit. These guys are being pussies.
Uh-huh.
We, however, see Homer's dreams once again crumble right in front of his eyes because the one and only person in line in front of him asks to purchase 30,000 tickets.
That'll be $950,000, please.
Look, the thing about that is I only got 10 on me. Can I pay you the rest later?
Sure.
And sadly, we see the man take all of the football tickets that were available for sale. Homer, the second person in line, gets the window slammed in his face and the sold out sign placed in front of his eyes. And sadly, this is still, even though it's not done in the same manner anymore, scalping is still a very serious problem and fucks up a lot of cool events because now it almost seems, well, the internet makes a lot of things easier, but it almost seems like Ticketmaster is like endorsing scalpers at this point because when you go to their page, you can actually buy secondhand tickets, which to me seems fucking ridiculous. Like they should have ways to limit that so fans of events can actually go and see an event for a fair price instead of jacking up prices on and paying scalpers for literally just sitting on them.
Well, the only way to change that is for fans to stop going.
And that's not going to happen.
If they watch on TV, the ratings are still going to be high and there's still going to be money involved, so you got to stop going and stop watching.
You can't stop the cycle. Everybody needs to watch the things that they want to watch illegally so that the ratings don't go up. That's the answer. Rebel.
So this brings me to a new theory that we can throw out there. And it makes sense because the show is about The Simpsons, but you almost feel like they're doing a Truman Show kind of thing to The Simpsons all the time, because anytime they're going to achieve that little happy moment, like the rest of the town or random actors, so to speak, get in their way to like derail them from achieving that happiness.
So you're saying that there's a man in the sky that could just push a little button and make a single rain cloud appear above Homer in this moment if they just really wanted to hammer down on his misery?
Or put a whole glass bulb around the city to keep them from escaping.
I really actually love that movie. It's a great flick.
Truman Show or the Simpsons movie?
Well, both, but I thought we were still talking about the Truman Show.
Oh, I was talking about the Simpsons movie with the glass bulb.
Oh gosh. Oh, to be fair, both.
It's like the Truman Show.
Oh yeah, very.
Yeah,
good.
that's I was trying to
reference. No, that makes so much sense.
I'm on a different level today, Miles.
Dude,
if you could come up here with me, I'd really appreciate it.
You are bringing it, sir. I am just down here on Earth with my fellow humanity. You are flying high. That's backwards from normal.
No comment.
Moving back into the show a little bit, we do see Homer is still just obsessed with trying to find tickets to this football game, and fortunately, Homer is a listener of KBBL.
That was Bobby McFerrin's new one, I'm Worried, Need Money. If you want tickets to the Big Pigson Classic, just get to a phone and be our 13th caller.
Get tickets. Must get tickets. Find phone. Yes! Homer arrives at work and he's stuck behind a line of cars. He's, getting, anytime you're like in a hurry, these things always seem to happen. He's just having these small nuisances that delay him. He's yelling out, "Ho, ho, stupid sheep!" And he starts actually driving the wrong way through the entrance gate to the power plant.
Still waiting for that caller.
Homer's still listening to the radio somehow, rushes into his office and is trying to be the 13th caller. But just then, as he starts to dial, another winner is declared live on the air.
Oh, we have a winner. What's your name, sir?
Ned Flanders.
Oh, not Flanders. Anybody but Flanders.
Well, golly, if that doesn't put the Shaz in Shazam. Oh, listen, what's the cash value of those tickets so I can report it on my income tax? And right here we get our second instance in just the short opening that we've had so far of this brilliant emotional detachment. I don't know if that's the right word. Basically, Homer is able to jump from one emotion to the next in a matter of seconds. He essentially has the emotional memory of a goldfish, because in this moment he's actually angry.
He's got ADD.
Yeah, he's like swearing at Flanders' name, but then they put on the song 2 Tickets to Paradise, and immediately Homer just starts singing along and even yells out, "Excellent guitar riff."
Well, it's better because he's actually angry when he hits the radio.
That's right,
so,
yeah.
You see his rage, and then it goes into, I'm completely happy.
It's very similar to a moment earlier. In fact, the opening moment with Homer and Bart where he was, basically scammed by his son, but then he went from being really angry to excited about the new possibilities with the wig. It's just, he jumps like a dog chasing a squirrel. He's just completely not focused on anything. And it's funny that his emotional range can change in just mere seconds like that.
The part that makes this joke perfect to me is that he was upset and pissed off about not getting 2 football tickets, and the song is literally 2 tickets to paradise.
Yeah.
And he's really happy about the song. And it's like he doesn't make the connection, but that's the part where I was like, that's very Simpsonian to me.
Speaking of Simpsonian connections, there's a great sequence next where young Bart is going to sadly have a realization of his own. It starts out with Homer being sad and upset as he walks into his home. He declares, "Why am I such a loser? Why?"
Well, your father was a loser, and his father, and his father. It's genetic, man.
And then you can see on Bart's face as he actually starts to realize what that means for his future.
Doe! It kind of shows, though, that maybe Bart's got a little bit of hope because he was smart enough to realize that means he's going to be dumb.
Well, and we all know that genetics is only part of the answer. I mean, yes, they do factor into things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be an imbecile like his father. Though we will learn that Simpsons gene does seem to run in most of the men in the family. Lisa, in typical fashion, is just confused by her father's antics throughout this whole situation. She says, "What's so special about this game anyway? It's just another chapter in the pointless rivalry between Springfield and Shelbyville. They built a mini mall, we built a bigger mini mall. They made the world's largest pizza, so we burnt down their city hall."
Yeah, they swore they'd get us back by spiking our water supply, but they didn't have the guts.
We then see Marge in the kitchen. Presumably she's making dinner because there's a chicken in the oven, and she gets herself a glass of tap water. And immediately the walls, the colors of the paint start to run. It's very clearly tapped with like LSD essentially. And she even says, "Ooh, the walls are melting again." And just then the chicken actually pops out of the oven. And I assume this is just happening in Marge's mind. But it's a great little interaction between Marge and the chicken she's making for dinner.
Personally, I think I'm overdone.
And then the cooked chicken flies out the window. Again, this is a fantastic sequence, and it just makes me wish that my town's rival would spike our water supply, because it looks like a lot of fun. But this sequence was actually met with a lot of fight back from the Fox network. They said there was absolutely no way they were going to allow one of the main characters of The Simpsons to take LSD during a primetime television show. But once again, another great story from the commentary of the Simpsons creators going to fight back for their creation. And Dave Merkin ended up battling the network on this and winning when he pointed out that Marge is not taking LSD intentionally. She is being drugged from somebody else. So she's not choosing to take drugs on camera. Drugs are being essentially forced upon her on camera. And that was the factor that made it different enough that they are able to get this joke on television.
I'm sure there are a lot of other shows on Fox where kids were taking drugs at the time. I probably could have just pointed to any one of those shows.
Well, I think this was a little bit before That 70s Show, which of course featured many sequences in the basement where they never showed exactly what was happening, but we all had a pretty good idea.
They were eating brownies.
Sometimes. I actually really like that episode where Donna and Eric go on a date and they order Long Island iced tea thinking it's just iced tea and then get really drunk because Long Island iced tea is, straight up alcohol. Though it
is?
Really doesn't make sense because tea, like standard iced tea, tastes nothing like a Long Island iced tea.
To all the listeners out there, MrMostDaysOff was responsible for me getting hooked on Long Island iced teas.
They're my jam, dude. They're like the best drink on the market because they just do the job so much faster than the rest.
He wanted me to grab him a drink, and when I turned around to come give him his drink, there were so many people in the bar, and the drink was so full, I was scared I was going to spill it, so I sipped a little bit off the top. And as soon as I hit my lips, I turned around and went, I'm going to need another one.
Yeah, you're welcome. Long Island iced tea. It's what you've been
win.
It's what you've been missing.
It's what you drink.
That's right.
We need a sponsorship from Long Island iced tea. That's trademarked, isn't it?
I'm sure. Yes, that would be a great sponsorship. Long Island iced tea in general. To be fair, that would be like getting sponsored by every liquor company in the world. So I'm all for this.
Absolutely.
For now, though, Homer is at the point of desperation. He is reaching out to his last resort. God. God, if you really are God, you'll get me tickets to that game. And just then, almost as if by answering a prayer, the doorbell rings.
Hi-dily-ho, neighbor. Want to go to the game with me? I got 2 tickets.
Slam! And Homer slams the door right in Flanders' face and cries out to the Lord, "Why do you mock me, O Lord?"
Homer, that's not God. That's just a waffle that Bart tossed up there.
And then Marge actually scrapes the waffle off of the ceiling and it lands in Homer's hand. So, of course, he immediately eats it. I know I shouldn't eat thee, but... Sacrilegious. No line for Homer on this at all. Because, of course, he's going to eat God, or what he just thought was God. But at the same time, we know from future episodes of the Treehouse of Horror, Homer will actually eat himself if deliciously prepared enough.
That's already happened.
Yeah, that happened in like the most recent Treehouse of Horror.
Oh. I thought you said upcoming.
Oh, if I did, I meant most recent. It happened on a recent episode of one of the last 2 previous seasons. I think it was this last one.
Yeah, it was.
It's actually a really good Treehouse of Horror.
We talked about it, I remember.
That night, though, Homer decides he's going to just go take care of business without involving Flanders. He's just going to go steal the tickets. But unfortunately, while ringing the doorbell and clutching onto a lead pipe, he's caught in his tracks by Marge hanging out of the window.
Homer?
Huh?
Are you planning to hit Ned Flanders with that pipe and take his tickets?
Yeah, no. And just then, Flanders answers the door.
Huh?
Oh, Flanders, I decided I'd like to go to the game with you.
Well, get out the Crayolas and color me tickled pink. Oh, what's the lead pipe? Were you going to give my noggin a flogging?
Well, yeah. And I love that's the exact response that both Homer and Ned have, even after being told that he was about to get hammered in the head with the lead pipe. Ned's so cool, he's just like, oh, laughing it off. What a funny idea.
Give my noggin a flogging?
So it seems like Homer and Ned are off to the game, and Homer couldn't be happier until he sees Lenny and Carl in the parking lot. Homer's actually in the passenger seat of Ned's car, but he still insists that Ned Flanders ducks down. He yells out, "Duck! I can't let the boys see me with you."
What?
But then Homer literally forces Ned's head down, even though, once again, as I mentioned, Ned is currently driving through a parking lot. And of course, this is not going to end well. But first, Lenny's response is absolutely fantastic here.
Hey, look! Homer's got one of those robot cars!
And then as the car crashes, we hear Carl come in. One of those American robot cars. As Homer and Ned are parking the car, we actually see the locker room where the Springfield Adams are preparing to take on the Shelbyville Sharks, and they have a special guest there to give them a motivational speech. Monty Burns himself is there to try to give the players a pep talk before the big game.
Men, there's a little crippled boy sitting in a hospital who wants you to win this game. I know because I crippled him myself to inspire you.
We then cut to the hospital where we see Milhouse laying all cast and bandaged up, and he cries out to his parents, "I hope they win, or Mr. Burns said he's coming back."
Which I want to ask, I know I keep bringing up the sports stuff and I was wrong earlier, but was Mr. Burns specifically mentioned as a motivational speaker, or is he like the owner of the football team? Because if he owns the football team and he manages the softball team at work, he's pretty active in the sports world.
Yeah, I guess he is. I just assumed he was there to motivationally speak. I got like what Ric Flair does during the NFL playoffs, where he'll go and visit a team and give them the woo and all that good shit, pepping them up. That was the impression I got with Monty Burns, but they didn't actually specify that I noticed.
I don't think he would show up just to give a speech, though, unless it was about nuclear power.
Or if they're going to pay him.
Yeah, he's got enough money.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But there's never enough for Mr. Burns. You know that.
I think he just wanted to beat a little child.
Also very possible. We cut back with Ned and Homer, and we see that they're actually taking their seats. And the seats that Ned won are absolutely fantastic. In fact, I found this to be a little unrealistic, because anytime I win seats from a radio station, they are always in like the nosebleeds, like the shittiest section that they weren't going to be able to sell anyway. So they're able to use them for promotional purposes. Not to say it's not fun to go sit in shitty seats for free at a concert that you won tickets for, but they got tickets that were like front row on the 50-yard line. Just to put it in perspective, they were just a few seats down from Mayor Quimby, and he's not going to be sitting in bad seats.
He doesn't want to be around the townspeople of the town he mayors.
Right, and he's going to embezzle enough funds to buy himself top-notch tickets anyway.
To be fair, I won tickets to a concert once, and they were actually pretty decent seats, but they weren't front row. They were probably like halfway up the section closest to the stage, but it also had like backstage stuff as well, or pre-show stuff, I guess is the better term. But yeah, you're not going to get that close ever.
Yeah, it's tough. Homer, though, clearly used to sitting in the cheap seats, brings his normal antics to the football game. After all, we learned when he went to the baseball game that it's not only his right, but his responsibility to get drunk and make an ass of himself. And he starts with a beach ball. He blows it up and he starts throwing it around the crowd, yelling, "Here comes the fun." And you can kind of tell that this is the first instant where Ned is just a little bit uncomfortable with the way Homer acts around him. We also get a great bit where Mayor Quimby, as I mentioned, is sitting on the same row as Ned and Homer. He actually yells out an order to the vendor, which, for what it's worth, vendors also don't work like this. There's like a separate hot dog vendor, a separate beer vendor, like a separate ice cream vendor. You can't just get all this shit from one vendor, but maybe you can in the really fancy, expensive seats, and I've just never had that luxury.
When you're saving time in the Truman Show, you got to have everything available right there with the actors.
I gotcha. For now, though, Mayor Quimby does yell out, "I'll take 2 hot dogs, 2 sodas, and 2 ice cream bars." But as they are passed down the aisle from the vendor across the row of fans, Homer can't help himself when they come past him. He actually takes a bite out of everything that Mayor Quimby ordered. "What the hell happened to my dogs? I want answers." And so his bodyguards actually stand up, but it seems like it's going to go fine, because just then Ned returns with a load of food, so it seems like Homer won't need to munch off of Mayor Quimby's anymore.
Well, I guess I should pay my share.
Relax, Homer. I keep telling you, you're my guest.
Ooh, you brought me a nacho hat. Thanks, Ned.
I actually love this idea here, because for one, they should sell nacho hats. It's genius.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
The center portion of the hat is actually where the cheese and I assume whatever you're dipping into goes, and then the entire rest of the hat is made of tortilla chip, so you can just break off chunks of the hat and dip it into your queso-y center. It's an amazing invention that the world should adopt more of. All food should come in the form of a hat.
They can make the underside be like napkin that sits on top of your head in case any of the cheese spills or in case you don't want to get hair in your chip.
Yeah, and you don't want like your head on. Yeah, especially at a football game. You're probably sweaty and whatnot. It'd be kind of gross. But this all, of course, leads to another very short but very sweet song.
Nacho, nacho man.
I want to be a nacho man.
Nacho, nacho man.
I want to be a nacho man. And as a wrestling fan, I won't even try to mask this one. I can't help but to think of that beautiful time in the 90s where WWF at the time, now WWE, was battling week to week with WCW. And at one point, Vince McMahon, bitter that he lost Randy Savage to the rival company, actually made a parody video where it was the Huckster and the Nacho Man. Both men, of course, the Hulk and Macho Man Randy Savage, had defected, and Vince made some parody videos that were quite pathetic, quite frankly, but they were just trying to poke fun at how old the two men that essentially made his company were getting when they defected to WCW.
So I'm wondering, in the 90s it was WWF, and now it's WWE. Does that mean we still have, like, WWD, C, B, and A to go through before wrestling's done with?
Yeah, you're right. We should have at least 4 more generations of wrestling to come. That's a cool theory.
Again, I'm on another level, Miles.
Throughout this game, we of course see Homer just eating piles and piles of food, literally to the point where they have to bring in a big old, like, tractor thing, a bulldozer, to move all the garbage off of the field. We also see a very tight game. In fact, coming into the very end of the game, Shelbyville is leading 27-21, but in a moment of glory with a very delayed reaction by the referee, by the way, we actually see the Springfield Adams score the winning touchdown to come back and beat their rival, the Shelbyville Sharks.
Well, this is before instant replay where you have to review this play anyway, so the ref wanted to make sure he made the accurate call. You can't blame him for that.
Fair enough. It did seem, though, it took him a very long time to determine if he thought that man crossed the plane or not. Either way, the referee does call it a touchdown. The crowd goes wild, including Homer, who is going so crazy for the win, he actually starts to land kisses right on Ned Flanders' face, which clearly Ned is very uncomfortable by the way. He, of course, doesn't stop there. He starts chanting out, "Losers, losers, kiss my big Springfield behind, Shelbyville." And he continues to taunt the crowd as everybody leaves the stadium. He does end up getting a beer can or two thrown at him, but when he taunts them some more, he actually ends up getting hit with a keg. Homer and Ned hang out. Their seats are so good that it's right by where the players enter and exit the field. So they hang out, and Homer is trying to get an autograph when he becomes frustrated that none of the players are stopping or paying attention to him. He actually yells out at them, "Hey, sign this, you fat, stupid jerks."
And then they turn around and look at him.
The giant football player, it was Stan the Man, the quarterback of...
Stan the Boy.
Stan the Boy, that's right. That's why it's funny. Stan the Boy, who is the quarterback of the Springfield Adams, turns and immediately Homer points at Flanders and is like, "It was him." But Stan actually recognizes Flanders. Ned? Is that Ned Flanders?
Idly ho, Stanster.
And we can immediately tell that Stan and Ned have a history together, and Homer is absolutely shocked by this, though Stan actually goes on to explain that not only does he know Ned, but Ned saved him. It was his Bible study group that took him in and showed him the evils of his way. I mean, after all, he used to party all night and sleep with lingerie models, but he was convinced by Ned's Bible group that wasn't okay. Saddest part of the episode.
Professional athletes always wanting more.
But Stan actually decides he was given the game ball, but he'd rather give it to Ned. But Ned, in a genuinely sweet moment that really does make this character all that more lovable, actually says, I tell you what, Homer Simpson is just about the biggest Atom fan that's ever graced God's green earth. I bet he'd enjoy this even more than me. And Stan's like, sure, whatever you want, Ned. And Homer, of course, could not be happier.
Wow. Now I have 4 children. You will be called Stitchface.
And Homer literally says to Ned that is the nicest thing that anyone has ever done for him, which is very sweet in a lot of ways.
Honestly, it's selfish to me, I think. I think people have done plenty of nice things for Homer, but this is something geared towards Homer that Homer appreciates and recognizes. I mean, you understand what I'm saying, right? Like, he loves football, and he's just that kind of guy, and like Ned did something that Homer would love. I mean, you can't tell me Marge hasn't done anything nicer than that for Homer.
No, I think you have an interesting point there, and a recent example I think of that would be from Lisa vs. Malibu Stacy, where Homer was ecstatic when he heard that he was going to be getting his inheritance early, but then he was equally, if not more, bummed by the fact that he had to share it with his family, and that does absolutely play into Homer's selfish side.
But it is a very, very charming moment, which is literally like my review for the episode is this is a very charming episode. There's a lot of moments where you feel excited and happy because Homer feels those things. And it's weird like how attached you get and how you feel what he feels in a lot of times. But in this one, like you really felt them bonding a little bit.
Yeah, it was strange in a lot of ways, but also, again, Simpsonian sweet, if that makes sense. Another example of this is right here as Ned and Homer are now driving away from the football game. They once again pass Lenny and Carl, and Ned this time is like, oh, I guess it's time for me to duck again.
No, I want everyone to know that this is Ned Flanders, my friend.
And yet again, another great little cherry on top for the end of the scene because Lenny and Carl say to each other, what'd he say? And Carl just replies,
I don't know, something about being gay.
And that actually brings us to the end of our first act. And of course, we're going to take just a quick moment to hear from our Podern family.
This is the Secret Transmission Podcast. We are a podcast about the strange and unusual, the secret and the conspiracies, the fringe and the supernatural. We're a podcast that talks about weird things like number stations, the Bermuda Triangle, the Salem witch trials, time travel, the moon landing, the Zika virus, serial killers, cults, the deep web, UFOs, superstitions. We cover it all. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and Google Play. You can also follow us on Twitter, at Secret Transpod, at SecretTranspod. Come listen to us try to explain the unexplainable.
Ready to say good.
And now it's time for our favorite part of the show. What's that say? Ads and sponsorship. Ugh, this is gonna be a real nightmare. Okay, what do you got for me? Patreon.com? What the hell is that? And they just give us money for it? Oh, if only we had that around in the 70s. Make sure you ask your mommies and daddies to send money to Best Darn Diddley at patreon.com so they can drive a dump truck full of money up to our houses. Uh-oh, I said the loud part quiet and the quiet part loud.
We come back from our break and we see Homer as happy as he's ever been. He's got his new child Stitchface, and he's actually removing his wedding picture from the mantle in order to have space for him.
I find it weird that they had their wedding photo like up on the mantle. I assume it was above like the fireplace. And I don't know. Maybe lots of people that own homes do that, but I wouldn't put any pictures up above the fireplace.
That's pretty common, dude. Putting pictures on the mantle.
I feel like it's a seasonal area.
Fair enough. I mean, if you have a mantle, you can do you, boo-boo. But I think that's a pretty common thing.
Or maybe like pictures of the whole family and not just the wedding picture. I don't know. It just seemed a little odd to me.
I think it's a hilarious response, though, because Marge is like, Homer, that's our wedding photo. And Homer's just like, Marge, quit living in the past. And just then, we get yet another great interaction between Ned and Homer because, again, they're now like best pals. And Ned actually shows up at the Simpsons bay window that they always see right by the living room and says, hey, dilly ho, window buddy. Just wondering if you'd like to come over and give the new pool table a whirl.
I'll be there, and this time, you can be the Nacho Man.
And this is where we first see how troubled Lisa and Bart are by this whole experience, because Lisa actually points out, Dad in Flanders? Next, we're going to see A's on Bart's report card, and at first everybody laughs at this, but eventually Bart does realize, oh, hey! But Lisa's not wrong. It's very strange and a little unsettling almost to see Homer and Ned hanging out like best pals. I mean, usually we see Homer cursing Flanders' name, and it's funny because this is actually the way you might expect to react to somebody like Flanders because he is such a nice guy, and he has such a dope basement bar that now has a pool table.
Be careful there, Miles. That is a new pool table.
They don't call me Springfield Fats just because I'm morbidly obese. And we see Homer leaning over the pool table trying to take like a fancy shot. And of course, because Homer is such a fat ass, the table breaks out from underneath him and entirely collapses, which, to be fair, that probably shouldn't be a thing anyway. Like, you should probably have a pool table that's sturdy enough that, not that you should use it as furniture, but in the event that
you want to have sex on it, right?
Weight, well, I mean, that's a thing. Like, that's definitely, especially with a wife like Maude. I mean, oh, yeah, baby. That's right. I do want to point out that the IMDb page for this episode does state that this is the only time that you see Homer playing pool in the entire series, which I actually find really hard to believe, but I cannot think of another instance where he does, so we're going to have to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone that plays pool knows that it's against the rule to take both feet off the ground. You have to have 1 foot on the ground when you shoot.
So, Rod and Todd are actually upstairs in the Flanders living room watching some very weird religious program with sheep talking about how one's jealous of the other because they have a sin, and then somebody comes down and is like, oh, you do have a sin because you're envious of your sheep brother. Whatever. Homer comes in and actually is like, enough of this. And he wants to start flipping through the channels. At first, Rod and Todd are upset by this, but Ned points out, boys, Mr. Simpson is the guest. He gets to decide what to watch.
Yeah.
We get this amazing moment where as Homer is flipping through the channels, each and every channel he goes to is actually blocked. And when he writes to Flanders, hey, I thought you had a satellite dish.
Sure doodly do. Over 230 channels locked out.
So basically, Flanders pays an expensive bill for cable so that they have 200 and something channels, but all they're able to watch is essentially the 700 Club and reruns of Bible Man and whatever the sheep show is, because that's the only channel not blocked.
Well, remember the cable guy or satellite guy was over there in the previous seasons hooking stuff up for him, and Flanders and him seemed to get along great, but you knew the guy was kind of screwing him over. Oh, wait, no, they didn't get along great. He was trying to give Ned illegal cable.
Yeah, absolutely. And Flanders wasn't having it.
Yeah.
Morals and whatnot.
He'd rather pay extra for less.
Maude comes in and tells the boys it's time for bed, and they actually say both goodnight to their father, and they say goodnight, Uncle Homer, which Homer is actually a little bit touched by.
Aw, Uncle Homer. Ned, since you've let me spend time with your family, I want you to get to know my family.
And we see them go off to Moe's, where Homer introduces Ned to all the barflies, and Moe, who he actually recognizes, oddly enough. We discover he recognizes him from being that nice man that reads to the children at the hospital. There's a wonderful flashback here where you actually see Moe reading. It's apparently the end of the book, My Friend Flicka. But he's actually crying and sniveling and all that. Like, he's very emotionally touched by this book as he's reading to his children.
Hey, if this gets out, the next words you say will be muffled by your own butt.
For some reason, Moe prefers to be known as a scoundrel around town. Homer gets home and passes Marge, who's doing some gardening, and there's another just great, probably my favorite line in this episode, or at least a contender for it, because Marge starts to talk to Homer, but he just says, "Can't talk, seeing Flanders, later sex." Homer is literally my hero in this moment.
He's put his priorities in order.
He does. He knows what's up, and just the fact that he can call it out like that. I mean, we know how much Marge likes it, but damn, that's pretty dope. We see Homer actually interrupt the Flanders blessing over their dinner. Homer is mid-prayer blessing the grocer, the middleman who jacked up the price, the humane but determined boys at the slaughterhouse, literally anyone who has ever come into contact or in any way, shape, or form been part of this meal. Ned is making sure to include in his prayer. But Homer, in typical fashion, just comes in and completely disrupts that.
"Hiya, Flanders. Ooh, dinner. May I join you?"
And he immediately just kind of jumps in and starts munching down on the food. Ned tries to explain that he'd like to chit-chat, but tonight's actually his night for charity work.
"Oh yeah, the judge made me do that once too. Stupid lack of public urinals."
"Hey, just so you don't have to suffer alone, I'm coming with you."
Miles, don't you feel like that there's a stupid lack of public urinals sometimes? Maybe like in a story that I told on the Derailers podcast the other week.
You know, sometimes life hands you a full bladder, and sometimes you have to fake that in front of a cop when you're drunk. Tune in to the Derailers podcast to find out more.
No, that's pretty much it.
Great plug there, Rich. Great plug.
Hey, they derailed our show, we derail theirs.
And now we derail our own, apparently.
Joe!
Homer and Ned do show up at the homeless shelter, but instantly you can tell that Homer is getting annoyed. In fact, when he's greeted, they immediately see him and assume he must be one of the homeless people. They get him some new clothes, but there's not much they can do for the smell. Homer just starts immediately bitching to Ned about how they've been here for like 15 minutes already. And Ned is actually at the point where, for the first time, he pretty much encourages Homer to leave him alone. He's still being very nice at this point, very kind, very polite, but he says, "Homer, maybe you'd have more fun over at Moe's tonight."
Aw, for some reason, Moe's always closed on Wednesdays.
And we see a pan out where Moe is now in the corner reading to the homeless people. Apparently that is his normal Wednesday gig. And again, for some reason, Moe is just doing all of this great charitable work around town, but doesn't want anybody to know about it. I guess it must just be a really good cover for like his panda operation and all the times that he's
operation,
all the insurance scams he's tried, and
he's got to balance it out.
Yeah, he's willing to join a militia pretty instantly. So yeah, there's other things he needs to do.
And then they realized they were no longer little girls. They were little women.
Again, Homer is just trying to hustle Ned along, and he actually ends up pushing Ned out of the way, saying, "You can shovel soup faster." And he starts scooping ladles full of soup into bowls at a rapid pace. Again, not because he's trying to help. He's just wanting to get out of there. But it's this moment that the press shows up and see Homer is helping the homeless at record speeds. And that is, of course, the moment they catch on camera. And that's what makes the front page of the newspaper the next day.
Miles, did you see what the news article was titled?
No, what was it?
It was "Big Fat Man Has Big Fat Heart." And then there was a little subtitle.
Accurate.
Yeah, there's a little subtitle at the bottom that says, "Little Thin Man Accused of Armed Robbery."
That's a very good way of labeling people, Springfield Chopper. Marge is actually at this point also expressing a little bit of concern. We're starting to see a bit of concern on Flanders' part, hanging out so much with Homer. Now Marge is actually worried and suggests that maybe he's spending too much time with Ned. After all, his family needs him too.
Oh, of course you'd say something like that, Marge. You've hated Ned for years. In fact, you wanted to bash his head in with a pipe.
That was you!
Love, Marge. Don't hate. Love.
Bart's upset, though, because the Flanders are a bunch of geeks, but Homer once again comes to their defense.
The Flanderses are not geeks. Okay, Rod and Todd are, and the wife has a thing for me, but she hides it behind a mask of low-key hostility. But we've got to give this thing a chance. I want the two families to take a trip together this weekend.
That is actually my favorite joke, I've decided. The fact that he thinks Maude has the hots for him and is covering it up with low-key hostility is the absolute best thing about Homer's character.
It makes sense. Think about how there's that whole theory that Maude actually hates Ned and has no regard for his life. Every time he's in danger, she just doesn't care. And think about it, like Ned's so tightly wound happy all the time and Homer's the complete opposite. It makes sense that maybe she secretly has a sexual feelings for Homer, especially after he ogled her.
Yeah, I think that's a big stretch, but maybe not. I mean, he keeps Marge awfully happy. I guess he might be able to keep two women happy.
You're telling me two wives next door to each other don't talk?
Good point. Women talk, dumbass.
But I do like the theory of Maude not liking Ned at all, though.
Yeah, that's actually a really sad theory that we'll get to closer to that episode, but, we'll talk about some more of those theories. But for now, we have Bart and Lisa, who are actually at least Bart is pretty upset by the idea of having to hang out with these geeks, but Lisa calms him down. Don't worry, Bart. It seems like every week something odd happens to The Simpsons. My advice is to write it out, make the occasional smart aleck quip, and by the next week, we'll be back to where we started from, ready for another wacky adventure.
Ay, caramba!
That's the spirit. This is one of many times just in this episode, but also I think since Dave Merkin has taken over the show, they seem to make a lot more meta jokes where they're kind of joking at their own expense, making fun of their own tropes, and some of the things that we talk about on the show, like The Simpsons Reset, get a little bit more wacky, it seems, as we move along through the series.
I absolutely agree, and you gotta love it when they take those meta jokes on themselves, or anything in particular.
Yeah, and it's fun that they toy with the fourth wall a little bit, things like that are a lot of fun to see. For now, however, we see the Flimpsons, the Flanders and the Simpsons, of course, all loading up in the station wagon so they can drive out for a camping trip. And don't worry, it's not going to be a bad drive, because Homer brought some entertainment. He brought Rappin' Ronnie Reagan on tape, of course. Well. And then you see this brilliant moment where Homer has the realization, wow, Reagan really did say well a lot. They get to the lake and the Flanders brought their boat, so they're trying to get everything set up in the boat launch. But of course, Homer is not great at this, and he ends up telling him to let it go about 8 feet from the water line and drops the boat right on the concrete boat ramp. It doesn't seem to be that big of a deal because they do in fact get the boat floating. In fact, they get it up to speed and Rod and Todd are water skiing. Ned's driving and Homer is in charge of keeping an eye on the kids. When Ned calls back and asks how they're doing, Homer just replies, they're fine. But when we look back at the tail end of the boat, we just see the 2 ski ropes dangling with no kids attached.
Kind of a dark joke.
Another very Merkin-ish joke, I agree. Another just funny Flanders moment here, specifically with their whole family. And funny for Marge and Lisa, too. It's funny all around. But Marge is actually making fruit punch, and she says out, I hope the children enjoy my special fruit punch. Lisa remarks, we even got the recipe from the Fruit Punch Advisory Board. But Maude is very, very stern when she tells the Simpsons that her kids do not consume sugar.
Oh, gosh. I'm sorry. Our boys don't eat sugar.
But why would the advisory board give us bad advice?
No sugar!
Marge and Lisa do the classic groan in unison, which is always fantastic. Meanwhile, in the woods, we see Bart, Rod, and Todd, and Bart has a pixie stick. He's assuring the boys that pixie sticks don't have any sugar in them. Rod tries some, and immediately he starts to lose it. His eyes start to bug out, and Rod and Todd actually end up getting into a fight, which seems to happen a lot when they hang out with Bart. Don't hog it all, you smelly head.
Go to hell, zitface.
And we actually see them rolling around playing tug-of-war with this tick.
With this dick?
Playing tug-of-war with this pixie stick, which, to be fair, sugar is super addictive. It's probably people really would react like this if they'd never had it before.
That's kind of how I react when I have some.
You just keel over and die.
I get to eat sugar at work occasionally, but that's because I'm active the whole time.
Sure.
When I get low, I go, need Skittles.
Taste the rainbow.
Right off that dude's face.
As far as Homer is concerned, though, everything is going phenomenally. They couldn't be happier. He even proposes a toast where he says how excited he is to be together, both families. If this were a more perfect world, we'd all be known as the Flimpsons. So here's to my best friend, Ned.
And this is before Brangelina.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
Simpsons
Simpsons did it. Yeah, wow. I love how Ned is kind of just like sighing, and you can tell he's a little bit just, things are clearly not going as happy. Yeah, very much so. As happy as Homer is with the way things are going, Ned is not so thrilled with how things are going. And things get worse during Ned's response speech or response toast or whatever you would say there. Homer gets bored and declares, "Food fight!"
Honestly, I don't think he was bored with that. I think he was like generally just so happy, and this is just the way Homer is when he's ecstatic. And I think he was planning this since before he started talking, too.
Fair enough. That does seem like just a Homer thing to do. But at the same time, who doesn't love a good food fight?
Well, my favorite thing about the food fight is that at first it's just Homer and Bart, but the camera's pointed at Lisa and Marge. And after a few seconds, they start throwing food and start having the same smile on their faces. And I actually really love that moment.
I mean, they are still Simpsons after all.
Exactly. And that was like my theme for the episode. That was very charming to see that Marge and Lisa joined in on that.
Very true. Ned, however, not charmed at all. In fact, in the next sequence, we see that they're packing up, and when Homer asks why, he says, well, we're heading back because Todd's got zesty Italian in his eye.
Which they're at the water. Just throw him in the water. I guess he's already lying.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that makes the baby Jesus cry, as we'll learn soon. For now, though, Homer insists that he takes one more spin on the boat, and before Ned can say no, Homer has already yoinked the keys and is out taking it for a ride.
Oh, Lord, please give me the strength to endure Homer Simpson's friendship.
And as he concludes his prayer, somehow in just these few seconds, Homer has managed to launch the boat airborne. It flies over the parking lot and lands right in the middle of the cars. In fact, it not just lands in the middle of the cars, it specifically lands on Ned Flanders' car. Homer's response here is fantastic, too. Your car! And as we look around at a full parking lot, the only vehicle damaged was Flanders. Boy, what are the odds of that? Dr. Hibbert's great, too. He's just a random lake visitor who happens to be pulling into the parking lot at the same time as Homer is ruining Flanders' life.
Cheers to Homer Simpson for all his recent charity work.
Everyone around starts cheering, and you can see Ned Flanders is a little bit visibly annoyed by the fact that Homer is essentially being a total asshole, but everybody in town thinks he's this great guy. But Hibbert's line isn't actually quite done yet.
Cheers to this rusty tailgate.
And he struggles to get his tailgate open because it's apparently rusted shut. Which, come on, man, you have the Hibbert Money Organization. Surely you can afford a new tailgate.
Or just have Homer ram the boat back into your car.
True. We then get probably the absolute most Merkin joke that exists in the show, at least to date. Because in the next sequence, we see Ned Flanders is carrying some sort of case, and he's walking to the top of the church tower. He then opens the case he was carrying, and we see that what's inside is actually a rifle that he starts to assemble. Then, as he looks down from the perch, everybody he sees walking around, he says, "That's Homer Simpson, bang! That's Homer Simpson, bang!" And essentially, we see Ned Flanders go on a shooting spree. And of course, he does eventually wake up from this dream, which I don't know is considered a nightmare or a fantasy for him at this point. But it was a very dark dream sequence that I would argue in today's world, where unfortunately shootings like this are actually all far too common, I don't think you would ever see a joke like this on television again.
I don't think there's any arguing involved. It just wouldn't happen. Pretty much almost directly after this season, we could argue for that far back. But in this day and age, absolutely not. You'll never see this on television again.
I don't know for certain. It doesn't say anywhere, but I wouldn't even be surprised if in syndication this scene is actually removed.
Ooh, that's a good point. I know I've seen it sometime in the recent past where I've still seen it. But I remember even as a child seeing that scene, I thought it was like in a direct reference of some movie or something.
It was actually, there was a homage to the movie Vertigo in there, but I don't think that's actually the whole sequence. I think that was just aspects of the clock tower. I'm not certain on that, though. They did mention the movie Vertigo, though, in the commentary. And there is one last little bit of dialogue here before we get to the end of our second act. As Ned wakes up gasping and essentially just had this night where he sits straight up in bed and he's sweating, and he tells Maude, I think I might hate Homer Simpson. And then immediately we cut to the Simpsons home where Homer also wakes up gasping and says, Marge, I think I hate Ted Koppel. No, wait, I find him informative and witty. Good night. Ted Koppel is actually just a very popular anchor from the show Nightline. He was actually on the show from its inception in 1980 all the way until 2005, so a 25-year career on that show. And the Simpsons staff said they were going to just take a random shot, but they really didn't have anything mean to say about the guy, so they thought it would be equally funny just to do it this way.
I really like the way they did it.
I think it was very fun. A really good way to bring us to the end of our second act. So we are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
I'm Jay.
I'm Bob.
And I'm Corey.
We are the Cretans Guild.
We're a trio of man-children whose friendship predates The Lion King, Green Day's Dookie, the N64, and the Chunnel.
We have backgrounds working in television, video games, radio broadcasting, creative writing, and pizza delivery. That's a large cheese, right?
On our podcast, Nerd or Not, you'll hear us talk about board games, TV, movies, comics, collectibles, video games, wrestling, theme parks. We even did a segment on f***ing pizza.
So check and listen to us on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. And check out our socials on Twitter and Instagram under Cretans Guild.
Welcome to the Guild.
Hi, I'm MrMostDaysOff. You might remember me from such podcasts as the 50th Podcast Celebration Show and the Michael Price interview. I've brought a friend along today to talk to you about an exciting new product.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Richie the WizKid.
Miles, did you know that most people have no idea how to get a Best Darn Diddly t-shirt?
You can get a t-shirt with a podcast logo on it?
Well, if you go to tpublic.com/bestdarndiddly, you'll find not only shirts, but also Best Darn Diddly hoodies, posters, mugs, and even phone and laptop cases. It's like they'll put their name on anything.
Help support the Best Darn Diddly Review Show by purchasing any of the crap we put our name on at tpublic.com/bestdarndiddly.
Bye, everybody.
So very late into this episode, we start our third act, and at this point, while Homer could not be more infatuated with his new best buddy Flanders, Flanders is reaching his breaking point. We see at first that Flanders is playing basketball in his driveway with Rod and Todd, and we get an image of Homer sliding through the hedges, which every person who's ever used Twitter has seen at least once. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. This is a very popular meme where you see Homer slide in from the hedges, and then he immediately just disappears through the hedges. Again, everyone's seen this. Unfortunately, in some ways, I would argue that this moment in so many ways overshadows the rest of this episode, even though this episode is so great. It's just that has become an iconic meme at this point.
It is one of the memes where I say there's a possibility it's been overused, and I hate saying that about something with The Simpsons, but like the moment on the episode is so damn funny, but like if people use it so much that it almost deters me from liking it as much.
Desensitizes you a little bit from the humor.
Yeah.
I get it. This is where I was talking about we get a little bit of uncharacteristic actions from Ned, because Homer is trying to say, hey, what are we doing today? And Ned essentially says, well, we're going to just do some family stuff, just the Flanders family. He tells them that they're going to go see the Flanders grandma, and that's when Homer's like, okay, I get it, and he slides away.
No reporters.
Yeah, that's right. When Homer first hears that it's just going to be family stuff, he's like, yeah, no reporters. And that's when Ned is like, no, just the Flanders. But again, Homer actually takes this pretty well. He just slides right back through the hedges. No big
you
deal.
could say pretty. Oh, okay. Slide. Oh boy, Grandma.
Unfortunately, this is immediately backfiring on Ned because his boys are now very excited to go see Grandma, and Ned has to explain they're not going anywhere.
But you said...
Well, sometimes to keep from hurting someone's feelings, you have to say things that aren't exactly...
Lies make baby Jesus cry. You know that hurts worse than anything else to Ned, too.
That's got to be a stinger for him, absolutely. And you know what? To be fair, this is part of that thing that comes into place where you end up with a lot of hypocrisy in religion because you can't play both ways. If he's going to try to raise his kids this way, these are the traps that you find yourselves in. However, he's going to quickly get out of it because Homer isn't done trying to hang out for the day. He really wants to go to the mini golf course. So he actually comes over, clubs in hand.
Got his own putters.
He's trying to go to the pitch and putt. I mean, you know, you got to have custom gear to get those good scores.
Pitch and putt.
When Ned sees that Homer isn't done yet, he's like, fuck it, we're out of here. He loads up the family in the car, and you see Homer chasing after him, putters in hand. This very quickly turns into a fantastic Terminator reference, specifically Terminator 2, when the T-1000 is doing this very same thing to Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sarah Connor in the film, I believe it is.
Wow,
Only,
Arnold
of course,
Schwarzenegger's the character name?
well, you know.
You went with actor.
I did. I did a weird crossover there, but you know what the fuck I meant.
I love Homer, like, because the whole time he's chasing the car, he's actually going, Nettie! And it's just
He's so calm during the whole thing. And to be fair, there's no way Homer can run and maintain that sort of cardiovascular like baseline because there's no way he wouldn't be panting and out of breath. But he's just so calm and happy. Even at the point where he falls off after dangling from the back of the car by the golf clubs, he gets thrown from the vehicle eventually, and it's just like, I guess he didn't hear me.
But I love it when Homer starts climbing up the back of the car and Maud's telling him to hurry up, and Ned's like, I can't, it's a Geo! But does this scene not help prove the point that Homer is unbreakable?
I think there is some strong evidence to report that at least on the outside, Homer sure seems pretty unbreakable.
He falls right off that car and just gets right back up.
Yeah, he actually gets tossed from the back of the vehicle. I mean, Ned is able to put on enough moves to get him thrown from the vehicle, though this also ends up backfiring because the moment they start celebrating, we did it! We got rid of him! Woo! He gets pulled over by Chief Wiggum, tries to explain himself, but just as the church tour bus with Reverend Lovejoy on board comes by, he's high as a kite on goofballs, everyone. And he's being forced into the back of the police car. And of course, Lovejoy and the rest of the church's congregation just looks down on him in shame. Wiggum's line here is fantastic, though. Yeah, where's your Messiah now?
But that's like, that completely... Well, you could get off just on that one sentence right there with a lawyer.
So when Sunday rolls around, Ned is actually, for probably the very first time, hesitant to go to church. He's embarrassed at this point, and he's not sure that he can face those accusing eyes.
Oh, don't worry, Ned. This is a house of love and forgiveness.
And as Ned opens the door, there's a classic Simpsons mob. There he is! Ned Flanders! The fallen one! The evil one!
Bet he's the one who wrote Homer all over the bathroom!
Ned immediately wants to leave, but his new best bud Homer yells out in the middle of the church, Hey Flanders, over here! I got some kick-ass seats! And to be fair, he's got front row pews just as good as the tickets they had for that football game.
But don't the Flanders always sit up there?
I think so, yeah. They probably have their name stitched on the padding of that pew set.
No, that makes baby Jesus cry.
What doesn't? Lovejoy also holds up the funny here. He comes in and gets started with the announcements. Before I start on today's sermon entitled, What Ned Did, I'd like to congratulate Homer Simpson on his recent charity work.
Yay! I live to give.
And he blows some kisses to the crowd.
Mwah, mwah.
That's beautiful. We appreciate the kisses.
Just rubbing it in, aren't they?
They call for the prayer, and this is where we actually see a preview of another episode, Hurricane Nettie. Not really, but we do see Ned have an absolute breakdown, because during this moment of silence that's designed for prayer, Ned, sitting directly next to Homer, can't help but be annoyed by Homer's excessive breathing. He's got kind of this whistling, almost like a snore-like sound as he breathes during the moment of silence, and Ned absolutely snaps. He cries out in anger in the middle of this prayer, "Breathe through your damn mouth!" And immediately everybody gasps, and they all start to stare towards Ned. Real quick fun fact before we move on with this scene, the way they got that sound effect was actually just Harry Shearer's actual noise that his nose makes when he breathes. And David Merkin was talking about this on the commentary and actually really appreciated and said that it was a very kind and very nice gesture of Harry to put himself in such a place of vulnerability by offering that fact up, because he could have just stayed silent, but it was actually Harry Shearer who said, if you record my nose close up, it'll make a perfect sound for what we need for Homer's breathing. And that's actually what they used to achieve that shot.
Yeah, in case you haven't seen the episode, the breathing gets worse and worse, but then his nose starts making a noise, and his nose starts jiggling around as he exhales, and it's a very funny noise, and it makes me happy that
it is.
It's an actual nose noise.
Yeah, it wasn't like it wasn't made up by the Foley department or anything like that. It's just how Harry Shearer's voice works, or nose works, I should say. Ned, though, is still continuing his outrage. Can't you see this man isn't a hero? He's annoying. He's very, very annoying.
Well, Ned Flanders is just jealous.
And that guy's all hopped up on goofballs.
Let's sacrifice him to our god!
Everyone goes silent, but then Abe tries to explain.
Come on, we did it all the time in the 30s.
And once again, in classic Simpson style, we see a lynch mob forming. But it's actually Homer who stands to Ned's defense.
How dare you talk about Ned Flanders like that? He's a wonderful, kind, caring man, maybe even more so than me. There have been times when I lost patience with him, even lashed out at him, but this man has turned every cheek on his body. If everyone here were like Ned Flanders, there'd be no need for heaven. We'd already be there.
Aww. And this is truly a very touching speech from Homer. Yeah, honestly, yeah. There's no other way to say it. This is absolutely beautiful, the way that Homer stands up for Ned's defense, because Homer in so many ways has been an absolutely obnoxious friend, but in a lot of ways too, I do think he was genuine in this episode.
He wanted to be with Ned.
Faking it. Right. It was very sincere. And Reverend Lovejoy even steps in here and is like, well, I think we all owe Ned a heartfelt apology. We were wrong to doubt him. And that was all it takes to turn the crowd's mentality, because Lenny's just like, hey, that guy's right. And immediately everybody's done with the pitchforks and torches, and they're ready to accept Ned again.
The great part about this scene is that Ned's upset because everyone thinks Homer is basically out-netting Ned. And
right.
when as an audience, we know that it's completely the opposite. Homer's just being obnoxious and gotten a couple lucky breaks. But it's that little speech he gives in the last moment where it's actually what happens, where he out-Neds everybody in the room with his little speech. And I think that that's where the writing and the voice acting all come together so well. It's this great, again, charming little moment towards the end of the episode here. But it was beautifully written again.
Once again, just another amazing amount of heart from the episode that you sometimes don't even expect. Like, you should, because it comes often with The Simpsons. But I think in this case, it's from somewhere that we didn't necessarily see it coming.
Well, this episode's had so many jokes and been so funny that it's just the little charming and sweet moments come real quick. But this is the long one, and then this is what I learned today, Stan moment.
Exactly. And immediately Ned also turns around again, and he actually thanks Homer and calls him a true friend.
Right back at you, buddy. Now how about that game at the pitch and putt?
Well, you just try and stop me. And then we see an absolute great sequence. Like we mentioned earlier, Dave Merkin, it seems, really loves to toy with the fourth wall and do these meta jokes at their own expense in so many ways. But we get a conversation between Bart and Lisa. Bart says, "I don't get it, Lise. You said everything would be back to normal, but Homer and Flanders are still friends."
Yeah, maybe this means the end of our wacky adventures.
But of course, then we see a cut to the next week, specifically Thursday at 8 p.m.
Guess what, everybody? My great-uncle Boris died and left us his old country house. There's only one catch. They say it's haunted. But I'm sure we can prove him wrong by spending the weekend there.
Hi, diddly ho, neighbor.
Get lost, Flanders.
Oakley dokley. And then Bart and Lisa, who are in the room to witness this, just sigh in relief because everything is finally reset and back to normal. It took a week delay this time, but they did, in fact, achieve that Simpsons reset. And Homer has the last line of the episode.
See? I told you there's nothing to worry about. This place isn't.
But he's cut off by the family screaming.
They were inside the house. The shot was from the outside of the old haunted house.
The haunted house that they only had to stay the weekend for. I've never heard of that storyline before, not even on The Simpsons. But that does bring us to the end of the episode, Homer Loves Flanders. Richie, is there anything else that you or that book of yours want to point out before we get on out of here?
I would like to say a couple quick things, but first I want to refer to my book, The Simpsons, A Complete Guide to Our Favorite Family. It says that Flanders' boat was actually named Thanks for the Boat, Lord 2. So that means Flanders has gotten 2 boats. Again, on his salary. I don't know how they're pulling that off, but he's getting really, really lucky from the Lord upstairs.
It's because he's fucking Heisenberg.
Yeah, that's right. Also, the guide refers to Flanders' license plates, which reads JHN143, which the guide says could refer to John 14:3, which I don't know what else it would be referring to. And the last thing the book points out is that the Last Supper, Da Vinci's Last Supper, is actually in Flanders' Den, which I did not catch that. I was not paying close enough attention, I guess. But I thought that was very clever. Overall, I want to point out that the resets in this season have all been fantastic. A lot of them, they're short on time and it has to wrap up quickly, but it's starting to feel like that's just The Simpsons. And it feels really good to say that and really good to see it every week. But the closing credits areas have been really, really funny this season, and this episode is absolutely no exception. Other than that, all I can say is, again, this episode is incredibly charming. There is a surprising amount of hearts in this episode and love between Flanders and Homer, and you kind of wish that it would go on after the episode's over, but at the same time, when you see Homer tell the nicest person on earth to shut up or go to hell or walk away, it's incredibly funny, so you can't lose that dynamic.
True. Yeah. We touched on it. You just said it, but that's really the only other thing I have to say as well is the surprising amount of heart in this one. And I think it's because when we see Homer and Flanders, we expect a certain type of episode. We expect there to be hostility. We expect there to be personal property stolen or borrowed, whatever you want to call it. But what we don't expect is to explore this relationship where you actually see a connection that is far different than what we're normally able to experience. And I think to some detriment, there are so many funny sequences in this episode that get used as memes. Like we talked about the hedge. There's the Terminator sequence that I see online all the time. Nacho, Nacho Man, a classic song. I want to be a Nacho Man. And all of those things are great. But I think it's almost they have so many funny jokes that when people think back on this episode, that's what they remember. And I think, at least for me personally, I forgot how great of a relationship we got to see develop between two men, which is a rare thing to see because in modern society, it's a rare thing to see actually, two men have that type of open feelings in terms of they're not like, having a sexual relationship. They're just having a bond between them. And
Homer tried it early in the episode.
That's true. They did have a little bit of man-on-man kissing, but I think that was an exception, not the rule. But overall, I just think that this episode can almost overshadow its own heart in the sense that it's such a funny episode, but that shouldn't take away from how sweet this one is too. There's a lot of, this one will get you right in the feels if you're watching it close enough.
Definitely watch the episode. This was, I kind of hinted at this last week, but I was nervous about this one because when I saw that Flanders was going to be in it, with the way I feel about Flanders, rewatching all these episodes, I knew I was going to really enjoy it, and I absolutely really enjoyed it. I can't say whether or not it's overtaken as the top spot, but I definitely have to at least consider it in my top 5 at this point. There's too many good moments, and I think when you actually watch the episode, it definitely makes you forget about all the meme stuff, like in the overshadowing sense. You still remember the memes, but like the episode's just so funny that you get caught up watching it in the moment, and you can appreciate it for the way it was supposed to be appreciated.
Well said, sir. And I think that is going to do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly Review Show. Richie, go ahead and tell them where they can find you online.
You can follow me on Twitter. I am at theWiz_kid23. Also, while you're on Twitter, go ahead and give our show a follow as well. That's at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY. That will also work all over social media on Instagram and YouTube as well. For me personally, check out my new series that just started. We've got a couple episodes going on right now called Wrestling the WizKid, where people try to talk me into liking wrestling.
And you can find that on our YouTube page exclusively, and definitely check that out. For me, I am at MrMostDaysOff. That works pretty much everywhere. And don't forget, guys, hashtag worst contest ever. Use that hashtag, get yourself in the drawing so we can give you an early release copy of the new book, Springfield Confidential, Jokes, Secrets, and Outright Lies from a Lifetime Writing for The Simpsons. Again, that's hashtag worst contest ever. Other than that, we would like to once again thank you so much for joining us on this weekly journey through the classic Simpsons episodes. The WizKid and I will be back with you again next week to talk about the episode, Bart Gets an Elephant.
And if you don't tune into us next week, go to hell, Zitface.
Until next time, be cromulent to each other.
Tune into the Dave Sanders Show every Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific Time to learn about the news of the world.
What the hell is that? A killer robot monster?
No, Stewie, not news of the world, the actual news of the world.
I'll tell you what the news of the world is. We're in a lot of trouble.
No, Stewie, that's an album. But we are going to talk about what's going on all around the country, the world, what's hot in TV, movies, video games, hell, even sports, wrestling, pretty much anything. We're going to cover it right here on the Dave Sanders Show every Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific. Check out our Twitter at Dave Sand Show to find out when new episodes are uploaded every Friday.